Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for always being here and following this deeply emotional story. Today, we continue to follow the unwavering journey of CEO James, the man who gave up everything just to find the woman named Liz T. Dype. This is no longer just a search. It's a journey of faith, of unconditional love, of determination in the face of cruel fate and relentless challenges. In the previous episode, James left behind all his responsibilities at the company, postponing meetings, contracts, and even the reputation he had built over many years. The only thing lingering in his mind now is the image of Dype, the woman who had gone through countless ups and downs with him, the woman he loved so deeply he would defy everything for her. He followed every smallest clue, from hidden forest trails to torn pieces of fabric to broken branches. But all the leads crumbled like dust. Dype left no clear trace behind. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, as if she had never even been there, leaving James physically exhausted and mentally lost in a deep abyss of confusion. He made dozens of phone calls. Each time the ringtone echoed, his heart tightened. But all he received in return was the endless, hopeless tone of ringing. No messages, no signs of life. All he had left was a fragile belief that Dype was still out there somewhere, waiting to be found, fighting in silence in the depths of the forest to survive. Waiting for him, the one person who hadn't given up on her. And now, in this next part, will a glimmer of light finally pierce the suffocating darkness? Will a tiny detail guide James closer to the truth? Or will the shadows continue to consume everything, rendering all his efforts nothing more than desperate footsteps on cold, unforgiving ground? Who are the ones behind all of this? What are they trying to hide? And does James have the strength to stand against it all and bring Dype back to her mother's arms, her little daughter, and back to his own embrace? Let's dive into the next heart-pounding moments of this story. Every detail will be a crucial link. Every emotion James expresses will be a raw portrayal of a man in love, a man willing to face the world to protect the woman he cherishes most. And you, our viewers, don't take your eyes off the screen, because every second from now on could be a turning point you never saw coming. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any new developments. And please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your words of encouragement will be the strength James needs to keep going on this challenging journey. Who knows, maybe your love and belief will help bring about a complete and heartfelt ending for James and Dype. It has been nearly a week since Dype went missing. A week that has felt like an eternity, each day passing by with torment, anxiety, and hopelessness. James has done everything he possibly could, contacted the police, hired a private search team, and personally scoured every place, chasing down the smallest of clues. But up to this point, everything remains just uncertain assumptions, vague information, and countless moments of hope followed by crushing disappointment. More than once, he received reports about a girl spotted in the nearby forest area, someone with a figure and silhouette resembling Dype. Each time, he rushed to the scene like a man possessed, hoping desperately to see her, to touch her, to know she was still alive. But every time, it ended the same way, just a coincidence. None of those girls were Dype. Not a single one was the woman he was searching for. And each time, his heart broke a little more. Each time, he had to force himself to stand up again, to keep going, to keep searching. Even though there were moments when he felt like collapsing, moments when his eyes grew weary of the endless wilderness, and his mind sank into a bottomless abyss. He never, not for a single second, thought about giving up. In his heart, Dype was still out there, waiting to be found, waiting for the hope that would bring her home. James knew he couldn't let himself spiral endlessly into helplessness and despair. life goes on. The company still needs him. Hundreds of people are depending on his leadership. He couldn't let this loss destroy everything he had worked so hard to build. So, he made a painful but necessary decision to return to work. But that doesn't mean he gave up on finding Dipe. On the contrary, he learned to reorganize his life, to divide his time between running the company and quietly continuing the search for the woman his heart had never stopped missing. He expanded the search area, reached out to the media, posted high-reward notices, and maintained close contact with support groups, all to make sure not a single clue, however small, would be overlooked. He knows that the road ahead may still be long and difficult, but as long as there is even the faintest glimmer of hope, he will not stop. Because to James, Dipe is not just someone he loves. She is an irreplaceable part of his life. She is the one who softened his heart in a harsh, competitive world. She is the only person he wants to protect, with everything he has. During those seemingly endless days, the only person by James' side was his mother, the one person who truly understood the pain he was going through. After falling ill from the shock and sorrow upon hearing about Dipe's disappearance, her health had finally begun to stabilize. However, while her body gradually recovered, the heart of a mother-in-law who loved her daughter-in-law as her own, not heal so easily. To her, Dipe was not just a daughter-in-law. She was like a real daughter, a girl she deeply loved, trusted, and placed so much hope in. Memories of Dipe, her gentle voice, her kind eyes, and the way she always cared for everyone still lingered vividly in her mind. And every time she saw James return home with that lifeless look in his eyes, her heart felt like it was being crushed. She knew there were no words that could ever express the pain her son was enduring. One evening, James came home after another long, fruitless day of searching. He walked invisibly thinner, eyes sunken, hands ice cold. Seeing her son like that, his mother could no longer hold back. She walked over and embraced him. The man who once seemed so strong, now reduced to a lost child in his mother's arms. Neither of them said a word. They just stood there, holding each other, crying silently. The tears fell without a sound, but they carried with them all the love, all the pain, and all the fragile hope left between them. Don't give up, James. I believe Dipe is still alive. I truly believe that, she whispered hoarsely, gripping his hand with quiet strength. James nodded, unable to speak, his shoulders trembling. He believed too, he had to, because that was the only way to keep going, the only way to keep fighting. From that moment on, there was a silent connection between mother and son. No longer did they speak often of their sorrow, but in their eyes was always a glimmer of waiting. They followed every bit of news together, prayed every night before going to sleep. Though nothing was said aloud, deep in their hearts, they both held the same wish: that Dipe would come home. In another development, the investigation unit was far from idle. After days of gathering intelligence, they held an emergency meeting. In that meeting, all the officers unanimously agreed on one thing. At this point, the most crucial objective was not just to blindly search for Dipe, but to capture John, the man operating from the shadows and pulling all the strings. Because if Dipe truly had been kidnapped, John was the only one who would know where she was. Moreover, he was a dangerous criminal, previously involved in a series of serious offenses, including drug trafficking, kidnapping, assault, and threats, with deep ties to multiple underground criminal networks. The police understood well. Only by capturing John could they begin to unlock the doors to the truth. With a carefully crafted plan in place, 2 undercover officers were assigned to monitor John's most trusted men. After many days of surveillance, they finally uncovered a critical piece of information. A major drug deal was about to take place at an abandoned house far from the city center. This was a golden opportunity to arrest John before he could vanish once again, as he had so many times before. That very night, a special task force was mobilized. Disguised as local residents, the officers silently surrounded the area around the abandoned house. There were no sirens, no gunshots, only precise, coordinated movements with utmost stealth. As John's group arrived at the scene, just moments away from completing the deal, the special forces stormed in. Caught completely off guard, they had no time to react. Within minutes, John and his accomplices were subdued and captured on the spot. All evidence and contraband were seized. With no way to escape, he was handcuffed and escorted back to police headquarters. However, what no one had expected was this. Even with John under arrest, Dipe's whereabouts remained a complete mystery. The police interrogated him for hours, pouring all their energy into tracking down every detail, every connection, every suspicious location he had ever been to. But John only responded with a cold, mocking smile, his eyes full of arrogance, as if he knew that in this situation, he still held the upper hand. He admitted that he had once intended to capture Dipe as a last card to force James into submission, to hand over the things he craved. But what was even more terrifying was this. Even he had never actually caught Dipe. Multiple times, he had sent men after her, set traps, plotted schemes. But all efforts came to nothing. Dipe had vanished in the strangest way, as if she were being protected by some unseen force, or perhaps she was hiding in a place no one could ever suspect. That revelation hit James like a bucket of ice water. He had hoped that capturing John would be the turning point, the light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. But no, everything was still shrouded in darkness. There were no confessions, no useful leads, no clear sign that Dipe was still out there somewhere. Not wanting to overlook any possibility, James personally printed dozens of photos of Dipe and roamed from house to house scattered around the area near the mountain, where he had a strong feeling she might have passed through or was hiding. He knocked on every door, patiently explaining, asking every local, even if it was just for the faintest hint. But all he received was sympathetic shakes of the head, compassionate glances, and helpless wishes of good luck. No one had seen Dipe. No one had any information. Once again, all his efforts fell into a cruel, deafening silence. James returned in silence. His heart weighed heavy, as if each step he took dragged with it an entire world of exhaustion. He sat quietly by the roadside, holding the now worn photo of Dipe, his eyes gazing into the vast, overlapping mountains. Where was Dipe? Was she still alive? Was she cold, hungry, terrified? The endless, unanswered questions wrapped around his soul, so tightly it felt suffocating. Just then, James's phone rang. It was Trang calling. Her voice sounded urgent. "James, can you come back to the company? Something's come up. The timber shipment we received last time has issues, and the partner is putting a lot of pressure on us." James paused. Work, the very thing he had tried to set aside in order to devote all his time to finding Dipe, was now spiraling into crisis. As a leader, he couldn't ignore it. He knew clearly if the company collapsed, countless people would be affected. And if he lost this anchor, continuing the search for Dipe would become nearly impossible. Left with no other choice, James was forced to temporarily return. On the road back, it felt as if his heart was being torn in two, one half, still clinging desperately to Dipe, the other bracing itself for the responsibilities waiting to be handled. After resolving the situation with the partner and his internal team, James called Trang into his office. He looked at his longtime colleague and trusted friend with sincere eyes. "Trang, I need to ask something of you. I'm going back out there to look for Dipe. But the company, I can't leave it unattended. I hope you can help shoulder part of the management. Keep things stable while I'm away. I know it's a lot, but I truly can't handle both at the same time. Trang nodded without hesitation. In her eyes was deep understanding, loyalty, and a profound care for both James and Dipe. She responded softly, I understand. Go. I'll take care of things here. That trust became a firm anchor for James. Though the road ahead remained filled with uncertainty and hardship, at least now he wasn't walking it alone. He knew behind him, someone was standing strong in quiet support, so he could keep moving forward, never stop believing that one day, Dipe would come home. After temporarily resolving the issues at the company, James did not rest. He immediately returned to the search for Dipe, as if his heart had never truly left that place. This time, the weather was far from favorable. The rain had begun relentless and bone-chilling, like the loneliness that had gripped his heart for days. But James didn't care. He walked through the rain. After temporarily resolving the issues at the company, James did not rest. He immediately returned to the search for Dipe, as if his heart had never truly left that place. This time, the weather was far from favorable. The rain had begun relentless and bone-chilling, like the loneliness that had gripped his heart for days. But James didn't care. He walked through the rain. He printed hundreds of flyers, each with Dipe's photo and a desperate plea for help. If you've seen this woman, please call immediately. With those flyers in hand, he walked alone through residential neighborhoods, small markets, bus stops, even roadside eateries. His shoes were soaked, his clothes caked in mud, but he didn't stop. At every place he passed, he posted one flyer, hoping that someone's eyes would pause long enough to recognize something familiar, to remember, something important that could lead him to Dipe. And it wasn't just James. His mother, a woman in the twilight of her life, but whose heart had never grown. Cold also couldn't stay still. She quietly went from place to place, asking locals, retracing the steps Dipe might have taken before she disappeared. She even returned to the home of Dipe's relatives, an aunt and uncle Dipe had visited shortly before the incident, but there was no news. The doors remained shut, like fate itself had turned away. That day, as she neared the forest area where Dipe had last reportedly been seen, she unexpectedly spotted James, her son, sitting silently beneath a large tree. He was soaked from head to toe, hair dripping, his eyes staring blankly into the dark void ahead. She walked slowly toward him, holding a worn umbrella, and quietly shielded him from the pouring rain. James flinched at the sudden presence of someone beside him. He looked up, and their eyes met, tired, heavy with sorrow, but filled with love. They didn't speak for the first few moments. The rain kept falling. The wind howled coldly through the trees. But in that moment of stillness, they felt closer than ever. I know you're exhausted, she said softly, her voice trembling. But I believe someday Dipe will come back. I truly believe it, my son. And you must believe it too. James looked at his mother, his eyes red and wet, not just from the rain. He nodded. Her presence was like a small flame in the thick darkness, warming his soul, giving him the strength to rise again. The two embraced under the pouring rain. They didn't sob aloud, but in that embrace was a sky full of love, hope, and an unspoken vow. They would never give up on Dipe. John has been captured, and justice, at least in part, has finally been served. But the whereabouts of Dipe, the woman James loves more than life itself, remain a haunting mystery. It's as if she vanished into thin air, leaving behind endless days of longing, hope, and silent waiting. Yet James has not stopped searching. Despite all the disappointment, all the moments when he was on the verge of collapse, he keeps moving forward, with a heart that never stops calling her name. Because he believes that as long as he continues the search, there's still a chance she return. But what about you? What do you think happened to Dipe? Could she be hiding for a reason she can't yet reveal? Or is someone out there helping her in secret? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Do you think Dipe will appear in the next episode? Will a surprising clue finally emerge and turn everything around? And will James have the strength to see this journey through, even as he edges closer to exhaustion? Let's keep hoping and stay tuned for the next thrilling chapter, where perhaps the truth will finally come to light, or once again, darkness may swallow every last glimmer of hope. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop your predictions in the comments. Who knows, you might be the one who correctly guesses the next twist in this emotional journey.
Hello, xin chào tất cả mọi người ơi, thì thời gian vừa qua kênh mình có một chút vấn đề nên không có được lên video đều đặn về video Lý Tử Diệp. Và kể từ hôm nay thì kênh mình sẽ lên rất là đều đặn về nội dung video Lý Tử Diệp. Và sau đó thì mình sẽ xen kẽ thêm nội dung của câu chuyện Lý Hoài Ca vào trong kênh. Mong là mọi người sẽ ủng hộ kênh của mình nhiều hơn để kênh của mình có thể phát triển hơn. Và mọi người hãy đăng ký kênh để kênh của mình có thể đạt 1000 người đăng ký mọi người nhé. Và nếu như mọi người yêu quý kênh mình cũng như là yêu quý các nhân vật Lý Tử Diệp, James hay là Lý Hoài Ca và Cảnh sát Hùng thì mọi người hãy chia sẻ video cũng như để lại bình luận để góp ý cho kênh mình nha. Và nếu như mà mọi người muốn đón xem những tập mới nhất để kênh mình mới ra thì mọi người hãy đăng ký kênh, sau đó bật chuông thông báo lên để có thể nhận được thông báo mỗi khi kênh mình lên video mới. Và cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo. Bye bye.